Hey everyone, Joshua Hanlon here in Evansville, Indiana, and I'm joined by Dan Siskind. He's going to take us through over 100 World War II Lego military vehicles that Brickmania has sold as kits, as well as just other ones they made for different projects over the years. So fantastic lineup here.
Sure, thanks. Well, we'll start left to right. I mean, this is actually, I should say that this is a collection of stuff. It's most of what you see here has been a former kit of Brickmania. Some of them were made for instruction books. I'll give you a little idea as we go down. So we'll actually start with the first one here, because this actually isn't a Brickmania kit. This was a model by my friend Rum Runner. He's from up in Canada, and he's worked with Brickmania kind of on and off as he's a critic of our models, and he builds them. So this is kind of a copy of one of my original little Stuart tanks, and he made a British version of it. So it's a desert version. So some minor updates and modifications he made to it, and I thought I'd bring it here because it's a really cool model, and we'll probably never make a kit of it, but it's definitely worth the display. Right next to it's a Matilda Tank. So these are all British that you're looking at. Was a kit. It's a World War II infantry tank. Was a kit. Next to that is the Grant, which was one of my earlier World War II kits. So it wasn't even a kit really. This was something I made just for some instructions years and years ago. When I got back into doing Brickmania back in 2007, 2008, this was going to be an instruction book. And in fact, I did release an instruction book of it. So that's a really old model. Same with the Priest right next to it. Never Brickmania kits, but
just kind of things you put together to have instructions for.
Yeah, and when Brickmania first kind of relaunched after the 2003 to 2008 break, these were the ways I got back into it, making these models.
Mm-hmm. So. Do you notice a big difference in kind of your build style from back then and how you did those compared to if you're working on a kit today?
Definitely like chunkier, lots more studs showing. That's all I had to work with. You know what I mean? I did the Lego has changed a lot. So, part selection, part colors, just, the newer pieces mean that you have a lot more versatility. There's no cheese slopes on any of those. It just, the parts didn't exist yet. So as you move down, this one here is a Crusader tank. So that's kind of a more recent Brickmania kit. The one next to it is one of Yitzy's Valentine tanks. We never made it as a kit. We do this micro brick battle game, and we wanted a full minifig size representation of the Valentine, which is for the micro brick battle game. So we had a card that came with it. We just built it for a picture, basically. Mm-hmm. So maybe someday when we do Rats and Foxes Part 2, that'll appear in that instruction book along with the Crusader. Next to it is this is a Sherman Firefly. This is one of the first models, American tank models that our new designer Cody built. So Cody Ocell designed the Firefly. We happen to like the fun humor in putting the little POW flag on it. So that was a nice addition. Next to that is it's a Canadian actually pattern artillery tractor. So Cody and I worked on this together. He made the tractor, I made the limber and the gun. So it's a British 25-pounder gun. Next to that, this is another one, never released as a kit. It's a British mobile artillery gun called the Sexton. Another one that we just needed a picture of it, so we built one. There's a lot of things. We need a picture. We need something for a historical document. We need to build it. So
is that something you ever try to do like digitally, or is that you pretty much all build it physically generally if you want something like that?
Well, when we build instructions, make our the way we do our designing, it's strictly bricks first. Okay. We always build in bricks first. There are tools out there, obviously, for designing or making like Lego instructions, instruction books and stuff. We find those are way clumsier, and I have a certain amount of respect for people who do digital designing, but usually you can tell when people have done it digitally and then you build it, like it doesn't hold together, Mm-hmm. So we like to be able to build with our hands first. So that's an example of it. So the next down the line are just three more sort of World War II desert British, and this one actually happens to be Australian. It's an Australian copy of a British vehicle.
It gets confusing.
Right. They call it the local pattern. So, okay. In World War II, Britain called in all of its Commonwealth countries to contribute to the war effort, and they brought with them their own equipment, and this just happens to be the Australian version of the British Universal Carrier. Next to that, you have 3 French tanks. These are early World War II French tanks. The one on the left, the little Renault here, and the Samoa on the right were both kits that we released, and they're long sold out now. The one in the middle was never released. It's a FCM 36 French light tank. we are in the process right now of putting together a Blitzkrieg Bricks instruction book. So we wanted to get all the notable French tanks in that book. So we built that middle tank just for the instruction book.
The camo pattern on that is fantastic. Do you find that's one of the harder details to achieve with some of these vehicle designs, kind of that camouflage or melding the different colors?
We like doing it. It's another challenge, and it's not everybody can get it right. So when you're looking at pictures, go, how is this camouflage done, and how can I do it in bricks? And sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. The Samoa here is camouflage, and you'll notice it's more of a horizontal pattern. That's actually intentional. At different eras, different times, there are actual patterns of how they would do it. The French were really known for like thinking, oh, let's do it as a horizontal print because that's land or water, land, sky, and that's the way the Earth looks. And then you have the sort of like more splotchy camouflage, like a jungle camouflage almost. So after that is a whole series of Russian tanks. So some of these were made for our books. This T-26 is an old Operation Barbarossa. We had a series of kits. Next to it is a BT-5. It's a fast tank. We never actually made a kit of this. We did a BT-7. We did the next one in the series, and we had a need to go back and make the BT-5 because we were making a certain scenario. Needed it for picture, so we again, picture only, never releases a kit. And then next to that, T-34, T-34-85, Russian tank was a kit. It's probably one of the most requested things for us to bring back right now. Because we've done a different T-34, the earlier war versions. Everybody wants this one, so we'll bring it back eventually. Next to that, you have the KV series. Here, let's take a look at these together, side by side. So this is the KV-1, and right next to it is the KV-2. Look at the size of the turret on that thing. That's like a battleship turret, So same hull, but they decided they wanted an artillery piece in there. So we built them both. In fact, we made a kit this is the kit, and you had instructions to build that turret on it. So,
Okay.
So we have fun with this stuff.
That's certainly a very unique turret when you're looking at the vehicles here.
You can't hide that very well. It's definitely there's issues, obvious issues. So let me see if I can get these put back, sort of in some semblance of order. I dropped one. I'll figure it out later. Oh, so IS-2, this is Joseph Stalin. This is the Russian tank. Heavy tank, notably, you'll see pictures of this in Berlin after World War II. There's all these victory parades, and they march these tanks, maybe because it's Joseph Stalin's namesake. But that's another one. So I knocked the antenna off. I'll have to fix it later. So self-propelled artillery pieces, we have two. The KV-85. That's not a KV-8. What is it? SU-85. Self-propelled gun, 85 millimeter gun barrel. Over to the right of it is the 155 SU-152. It's like basically a 6-inch howitzer stuck in the tank hull. And then next to that is an even bigger gun called Stalin's Sledgehammer. So they would wheel these things up into towns and just like destroy entire city blocks with one shell in it.
Wow.
Yeah, it needs a little TLC. It didn't travel all that well. So, yeah, I mean, some of these kits have been in bags for like a year or two, and we take them out like, oh, that's not survived the moving around. This is a Katusha rocket launcher. So this is actually a Studebaker truck. So during World War II, the United States sent over shiploads of American equipment to the Russians, and the Russians, were busy fighting the Germans, and they converted these into, this is called a Katusha. It's a rocket truck, basically. So a big giant rocket volley. All these things will basically shoot off one right after the other, and if you're unlucky enough to be on the receiving end of that, you're gonna be in for a lot of pain.
Now, is this something? So you've got all these rockets here. Kind of brings up the idea of playability. Is that something Brickmania tries to incorporate very much?
You will notice that they are flick missiles. So you can flick them off if you want. We don't do that on every model, but every once in a while we do kind of like the nod and the wink to the Lego designers.
Okay.
And we'll incorporate some of their innovations. So yeah, you can shoot these rockets off. You can flick them off. I probably wouldn't do it very well. I'm not very well practiced in the flick missile technology and techniques, I should say. So here again, we have some artillery pieces in here. These three right here, well, let's say these three here are kits, or have been kits. These three were only made for props. So you have it's a little armored car. I think it's a BA-6 armored car. only made in kits, is fully functional. Make a great little, or only available instructions would make a great little kit. But someday we'll release maybe either instructions or a kit or both. This as well. So 3 pieces that are only available. I guess they're not even available anyway. We just use them for picture props. Next to them are 2 Polish vehicles. This is a Polish, what's it? KTS? I don't know, TKS, I believe. I don't have the benefit of having the card.
So it's hard to remember all the names.
TKS Armored Car. John Canepa actually made this. So John, who used to do Brick Brigade, has joined Brickmania, and he's helping me finish up that Blitzkrieg Bricks instruction book. So all the major combatants, Poland, France. We're going to even have Holland and Belgium represented in this book.
Some of the less remembered countries.
Yeah. Well, they're not less remembered, but we don't remember their contributions,
Right.
their equipment. So this is a Polish 7TP tank. It's like a 7-ton light tank, copied from the British light tank. But not many people knew that the Polish actually had really good tanks at the beginning of World War II. They just didn't have very many of them. So then we start into the Americans. So this like little area right here in front is the ode to Dodge. These are all various Dodge vehicles, starting out with Patton's command vehicle. It's a Dodge, I can't remember the number, WC 56 or 57, something like that. Ambulances, 2 different ambulances, weapons carriers, and then the one GMC vehicle right here is the CCKW. So this is a deuce and a half, the famous truck that you would hear about them driving supplies and convoys to the various points in Europe and Asia. This is kind of out of order. Let's reverse this here. Let's put the armored car first. So this is a M1 armored car, scout car. Next to that, you have these half tracks. 2 half tracks. You have the M3 and then the M16, which is actually affectionately called the Kraut mower. It's 4 50 caliber machine guns, and they made these for anti-aircraft use. But by the time the United States had actually entered the war in Europe, there really wasn't that much use for anti-aircraft guns. So they would lower these against ground targets, infantry, anything that was caught in the open, and that you could easily take out just about anything with 4 50 caliber machine guns. Couple of amphibious vehicles here. They would be in the Pacific for sure, but they also were in D-Day, that kind of thing. So LVT, this is a basically amphibious landing tractor. So troops would be in here that could drive, it could swim through the water, drive up onto the beach, ramp goes down, guys come running out and they do whatever they need to do. This is a fire support version, same sort of concept, but it actually has an artillery piece mounted on the roof. So these would land together, soften up the troops on the shore, and then these guys would come and capture. That was the theory anyway. It didn't always work out so well. Then we start getting into the American tanks here. So you have the little M2A4 Stuart. This is only really used by the Marines on Guadalcanal, and they were quickly given the M3 Stuart, which is the next one. I don't have it here, but we have an M5 Stuart. They kept coming out with this, calling it, there's all the Stuart light tank series, but it went from M2 to M3 to M5. I just think they skipped M4 because the Sherman was the M4. Speaking of Sherman, actually I won't change them around. M18 Hellcat tank destroyer, one of the most popular models we've ever done. Just unfortunately we can't get pieces to keep making these as kits. Someday we'll make.
Is that the biggest limitation on kind of re-releasing or releasing these things as kits? Is just getting those pieces to be able to put out enough?
It's kits. It's a combination of parts and demand. If there's not enough demand, we're just going to be, okay, that was cool.
Right.
Well, if there's a super huge amount of demand, and we do read our comments on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and we could judge, you can definitely tell if something's going to be popular because you get a lot of requests for it. And also we get emails. So, I mean, we pay attention to all that stuff. But definitely the Hellcat was one of the most requested vehicles we have. We'll probably re-release it at some point in the future. Next to that, we start getting into the Sherman territory. This is a U.S. Marine Corps Sherman. U.S. Marine Corps had different Shermans. They're diesel-powered Shermans. Most all American equipment is gasoline-powered, but the Marines sort of get the cast off every time. But the Army doesn't want anymore. The Army was using the diesel-powered Shermans for training, but they didn't want to send them anywhere because they'd have to have a second fuel supply. It's easy to just say, okay, we're only going to have gasoline. We don't have to supply gasoline, so that's what they did. Marines got them. They used them until the end of the war. Next to that is a M10 Wolverine tank destroyer. Basically, a tank destroyer is a fast, lightly armored tank that has a huge gun to shoot other tanks with. So it's a Sherman hull, but it's not quite as well armored as a Sherman tank would be. Sherman tank would have 3 inches of armor in the front. That only has a 1.5 inches. That's the difference. So we start getting back into Sherman territory. This is a Sherman Jumbo. It's an assault tank. It's a Sherman with just extra armor, extra wide tracks. They used them in Europe against like fortified positions. They weren't really designed to fight other tanks. Then you have the EZ-8 Sherman next to that. This is, if you're familiar with the movie Fury, this would be the tank that was in it. The end of the war, the U.S. Army came out with the Chaffee, which is another light tank to replace the little Stuart class. It looks more like a modern tank than the old Stuarts did. So more Sherman derivatives. This is a M7 Priest. It's an artillery piece basically on a Sherman hull, and the M31 Armored Recovery Vehicle. It's actually an M3 Grant hull, but well, it's another Sherman in the Sherman family for sure. But it's basically when you get your tank shot up in the field, these guys would go out and recover them, patch up the holes, and send them back out with a new crew in it. So into the American artillery section here, we've basically done every American artillery piece in World War II. We don't have them all here, but we have 1 anti-tank gun, 3 or 4 different howitzers. There's 2 bigger ones that we don't have yet, so future releases. And I brought a couple of these Navy vehicles, so Navy Jeep, 2 bulldozers. The Americans were responsible for building tons and tons of bases, cities, everything, you name it, in the Pacific during World War II. So really common, you see Seabees, which are the Navy construction battalions, everywhere in the Pacific in World War II. They were really all over Europe as well. So building ports, that kind of thing. Then we're going to the Japanese stuff. So we're like, we're basically covering everything sort of chronologically and then by country too. So Japanese pillbox, this was a set. It was like a play set. You get the Japanese anti-aircraft gun and then Japanese pillbox. It ended up being fairly expensive. People keep asking us, hey, we want bunkers, we want all kinds of, I'm like, well, all right, we'll make them. But you know, as we predicted, it will be expensive and not as popular because of the high prices. So it's just funny. You get to hear the inside of what's going on, why Brickmania does what it does. So now we're in the Japanese tanks. And a lot of people don't know that there were a lot of Japanese tanks, but because they're more known for like their ships, you know, the Navy battles and the bombing of Pearl Harbor and that kind of thing. But we have 2 little tankettes. Tankettes weren't actually they're not like just miniature tanks. They're basically what the purpose of these tankettes was to either bring supplies to frontline troops and have some sort of armored protection for the guys driving them, or else they would tow artillery pieces. So 2 tankettes, Japanese light tank, the earlier medium tank. This is Type 89, I think, and then Type 97 later in the war medium tanks. So almost the entire Japanese tank family tree here. They made more that came at the end of the war, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. So now in our little foray into Italian vehicles, just kind of new to Brickmania. So this little guy here is actually a British truck, but the British and the Italians, stole each other's and captured each other's vehicles so much. There's kind of a blurry line between who really owns them. So this is actually a British truck with Italian flags painted on it, and they had a Italian anti-aircraft gun. Really common. So that's a 20 millimeter anti-aircraft gun on a captured British truck, which is actually a Canadian pattern truck too, to further complicate things. This is this is kind of cool. This is a Italian artillery tractor, but if you notice, the wheels will turn. Oh, yeah. It has front and rear wheel steering, and you turn the spare tire to make the wheels go. So I had fun. I made this one and I had fun playing with it. So we do all kinds of geeky things. If you notice, the wheels turn on here. Oops, dropped the spare tire. But the gun makes the wheels turn. So we do all kinds of geeky stuff like that. We, because we can. So Italian tank, Italian. It's like an assault gun, basically the same hulls. Cody made the tank, Yitzi made the tank, the little assault gun. And then we have the big Italian tank. It's actually in German markings because by the time the Italians got around to building this thing, the Germans were running the show there. So you can see that I never did finish it. This is just a prop. Oops, and I broke it. It was a prop for a picture. All I needed was for a picture. Maybe someday we'll release it as a kit, but I don't know. Brickmania runs in mysterious ways. What comes? What
You never know what's going to come out.
Right, right. We don't even know what's coming out sometimes. And now we have this whole entire German, which is, there's a lot of German vehicles here, and we probably have as many German vehicles in our warehouse as there are in this entire table. I just didn't think it would be very representational to concentrate on that much stuff.
Yeah.
The Germans went crazy. They'd take one vehicle and then they'd make 100 variations of it. And we pretty much made them all. So just for instructions or for just, for pictures and stuff. So Kubelwagen, which is of course the Volkswagen Rabbit, or not Volkswagen Rabbit, the Volkswagen Beetle. So this is the military version of the Beetle. Kubel means bucket, so it's the bucket car because it had 4 bucket seats. Okay. And it is exactly the same chassis and engine that's in the Beetle that was built until like the 1970s. So, this is a German transport truck. Early in the war, they didn't have a whole lot. They used whatever they could get. So they didn't have much material, and they just took commercial vehicles and basically turned them into military vehicles. Eventually, they came up with these half tracks. So this is 2 different half tracks. This one's designed to pull an artillery piece. This one's just for guys. We got time? Yeah. Okay, good. And we start getting into tanks. A lot of these tanks most of what you see here are just older kits at this point. This is a Panzer II T-38, which is when the Germans invaded and annexed Czechoslovakia, they basically took over their armaments plants. So this is a Czech tank made for the Germans. Then you get into the Panzer III, Panzer IV. These are 2 early Panzer IVs. Tell they're early because of the short guns. They were basically small artillery pieces inside the gun. Later on, they decided, we need a bigger gun because the Russians had better tanks than we did, so we need bigger guns to fight them. These are Sturmgeschtz. They're assault tanks. They don't have the traditional turrets. They're made to be low as possible to the ground so you can sneak up on enemy fortifications without being seen, or hide in the bushes and wait for their tanks to approach and shoot them. This is the famous Opel Blitz truck, just in a desert camouflage, basically, with an anti-aircraft gun stuck in the back. Another one we only put in a book. We never actually sold that one. Same with the Schwimmwagen. These 2 here, the Schwimmwagen and the Puma, only appeared in the Battle of the Bulge book that we put out. There's no kit ever been made.
Someday, maybe.
No, yeah, maybe. Like that camouflage. These are all what's called ambush camouflage. You can see that the next 6 vehicles or so all have this camouflage. The Germans discovered camouflage late in the war and decided gray wasn't good enough anymore. It's all going to be this kind of modeled camouflage. It takes there's an extra layer when you're designing sets of like this. It's just extra complication because you want the camouflage to look good. And we did a whole series of this sort of camouflage vehicles. We were doing our Battle of the Bulge book, and it's been popular. We'll have to do another book because some of these vehicles came out after the book was published. So this is a Puma half track. This is a Panzer IV L70, which means this gun is 70 times the length of its width. So it's a really powerful, really powerful anti-tank gun. Same gun as in this Panther tank. Then you go to, here's the King Tiger, which is like the mother of all German tanks in World War II, as far as this being big and powerful, intimidating, and effective. And then, of course, here's the regular Tiger, which is also very, very famous. I should fix this gun while I'm standing here. It's an anti-aircraft gun on there. Of course, I'll let you in on a secret that Brick Arms, this little ammo belt that's sticking out of this machine gun here. It is one of the more rare pieces Brick Arms has ever done. They have to hand make them when we ask for them. We just found out prototypes, saw him on the internet that he's going to make a pack with those bullets. Wow. Finally. So depending on when this video comes out, you might be the first to know that there will actually be a ammo pack that you will be able to get that ammo belt finally. After he's teasing the world like for 5-6 years with that piece, and finally we'll be able to get them. So, all right, and off to here, some more various oddball anti-aircraft guns from the Germans. You have this RSO, which is a I don't know, call it. It's a Rappenschlepper. Basically, it's a utility truck on tracks that they can drive in the snow. But in this case, it's got an anti-aircraft gun stuck in it. Various other anti-aircraft guns. So this is the famous German 88, feared by flyers and tank drivers combined. When Germany first invaded France, they didn't realize that the French had better tanks, and the Germans had nothing that they could fight the French tanks until Rommel had the right idea of using the anti-aircraft gun against the tanks, and this thing just sliced right through them. So famous, it's the feared and famous Flak 88, and this whole apparatus here is that's how they moved it.
Like all the men that would be involved with transporting
they
that.
made this gigantic truck to transport it, and then they'd pick these that actually connect to the sort of cruciform mounting that's on the legs would fold up, and then it would just turn into like a big gigantic long vehicle. So there's a guy who had to actually ride in the back of this vehicle he had a brake, I think, so like in hook and ladder trucks, the guy rides in the back, same sort of concept. All right, now we're going to transition to aircraft. So again, this isn't even all the aircraft we've done. This is just a sampling of World War II aircraft. This is when Cody made a fuel tanker. So it's kind of the oddball. It's a British fuel tanker truck, but in context with all these British airplanes, it actually makes sense. So the fuel Bowser, and then this is a Hawker Hurricane. The other famous British World War II aircraft. And then you have, of course, the Spitfire would be the more famous one. So I have 3 Spitfires here. This being a tropical version for fighting in the desert. This was in Mediterranean camouflage. And then the last one back here is the Battle of Britain camouflage. So for different areas, they painted them differently. Mm-hmm. They figured out, for whatever reason, the countryside was different color. We have a little bit of the Soviet Union represented here. This is Cody's Sturmovik, IL-2 Sturmovik. This is kind of neat. The undercarriage, lost the propeller tip. But you have little bombs. It's basically a ground attack plane, so it's got lots of cool little features. I love how the landing gear fold up, though. It's just like super slick.
Using like the tires there for the bombs as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like little secrets going, things going on in this thing. Builder's secrets. See if I can put that back together so it doesn't fall over. These are amazingly heavy airplanes, so they have to actually support themselves. Let me get that piece. The builder's curse, parts that fall off. So typically speaking, we try to build everything as sturdy as possible. So this is Japanese Zero. This is one of my older designs. We did this kit, like the first Zero I did was like almost 20 years ago now. They're getting a little bit better. So folding landing gear, real simple design. See if I'll just leave it folded in for now. Come back. It doesn't make good photography. 2 P-51 Mustangs. We've actually made several additional P-51 Mustangs, but these are the 2 that I had easy to grab. Mm-hmm. Cody did a newer, updated design, so that's available as a kit currently. It's a P-51B. These are D models here, so if anybody's wondering.
So are the updated designs something you try to do a lot of Brickmania, as far as if new pieces come out or whatever, you can make a better design? Is that something you try to do?
There's a couple of reasons for that. Sometimes these are like the late war P-51s, and we were representing the end of the war. We were trying to capture 1943, so it's a different Mustang. But while we're updating the model, we'll actually change a lot of the defects, or like, hey, new parts have come out, or here's a new idea of how to build this, and we will incorporate that. And we're real open to constantly improve our products. By the time we release something, we're already like, oh man, I wish I would have changed this. So when something comes around again, maybe a year or 2 later, we can fix all the defects if we remember. So this big thing right next to it, the Mustangs, this is a P-38 Lightning. Cody designed this one. It has one of the highest concentrations of printed elements and stickers in any kit its size that we've done. I think all these little pieces are printed, custom printing.
Wow.
Let's see, it wants to tip backwards. Has a pretty amazing landing gear system too, folding landing gear. Pretty much, it's kind of become the hallmark of all the Brickmania airplanes, is try to make everything fold if we can. Mm-hmm. It is a very, very tail-heavy plane, but it does work. This one here is one of Cody's Corsairs, F4 Corsair, F4U Corsair. This is one of the most sought-after models that Brickmania's ever done. We only made 150 of these, and we get requests for it almost every day. So,
instead of the folding wings on there,
it does fold. Let's see if I can do it without breaking it. Don't remember where the fold is on this one. Cody, I don't even want to try.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we don't want to break it.
Yeah, Cody's not here to put it back together if I break it. But it does definitely folds everything that we do. His later one folds better. Cody, where is that? I don't know. I don't even want to try, especially since I'm on. We're being recorded right now. Then we have after that we have a triad of Messerschmitts. So this is like the famous ME or BF 109 Messerschmitt from World War II. There's slight variations in each one of them. These are from different eras. Again, whenever we want to build something better, we'll make small improvements. Mm-hmm. These are on slated to be completely redone. So we're going to put out another Messerschmitt sometime in the next year. We'll scrap this design completely and start over from scratch. So, because just so many new pieces have come out.
Yeah.
This is like a 4 or 5 year old, or at least a 4 year old model at this point, and we could do better. These last little things here, these are 1/700 scale battleships. I did the North Carolina after touring the North Carolina, after some show, I think Brick Magic or something, and it's like I could build that. In fact, they kind of asked me to, and I never got back to them. I built it, and we made some sets. It's kind of unique for a Brickmania model is that these actually hard to see, but there's like serial number on the back. And Tommy from the Brick Engraver, he made little because he's from North Carolina, so he wanted to be involved in this, so he made a little USS North Carolina tile. So very limited edition of these. There's only like 50 or 60 made.
So this would almost be like the Brickmania version of like the Lego architecture line. You've got the fancier stands and everything.
Definitely, yeah. So then we did a USS Missouri because we have the big ship. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to have something that coincided with that. So we built the big one. And then, of course, if you're going to have the Missouri, you might as well build the Yamato too. So this is the pride and joy of the Imperial Japanese Navy, or at least it was until it sank. But they still, think of how important the ship is. There's like entire cartoon lines. There's still like, it's Space Yamato.
It had a lot of cultural influence.
Yeah. So it does have a lot of impact. So we built it. We did a whole series called the Wunderwaffe, like wonder weapons that are going to win the war. And we had to release the Yamato as part of that. So. Inside of here, I don't know if you're getting a lot of glare in, if you can get a decent shot of it. This is the B-17. This is the monster piece that Cody made earlier this year. We're like, what if we built a giant B-17 model bomber? Because we get requests all the time for like, that's too big. Nobody will ever buy it. So we sort of polled our audience and said, yeah, we'll do it, but we'll do it pre-order only. So we only make as many as we need. So we put a pre-order up in April, and they sold out in pre-order. We decided we're going to do a batch of 50. Did a batch of 50. That sold out in less than a day.
Wow. And
so we agreed to do another batch of 50, and it took about 2 weeks, but those are gone as well. So right now at this point, I think we're involved in making a third batch of this. So this is like, I don't know how many pieces is in this thing. It's like 5,000 or 6,000 probably. At least 4,000 pieces. I give you that much, but.
Yeah, that's impressive. So you mentioned doing the pre-order things. That's something that Brickmania has done with past kits, or something you're trying to. And Lego is now trying that with their new line that they just announced of doing some like funny pre-order, like crowdfunding type of stuff to kind of get an idea of whether it'll be popular or not. So
right. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. So is that something you found successful for you?
Well, we've only done it a couple times.
Okay.
We've done it in the past, and this wasn't necessarily crowdfunded. It was just sort of like, well, we'll do it, but if you want to get in on it from the ground floor, you're going to have to pay up front because it's just too much. It's the retail price that was $1,700, so you can imagine how much it would cost us to build that many models. We're like, well, it would kill us financially to do it. So let's see if there's interest first, and then if we can get people to pay for it. So the people who got it, the pre-order, got it for like almost $500 cheaper than everybody else.
The advantage of buying early.
Yeah. So because we gave them, said, look, if you pay for it now, we're going to give you at least 20% off the list price of it. And that's probably why we sold so many right away off the bat. Mm-hmm.
So with all of
besides, it's a really cool model.
Oh, right, yeah, no, it's excellent design. With all of these kits then that we've seen, smaller and very large like this, is it difficult to come up with designs still with so many? You've done so many different iterations of, especially like World War II vehicles and stuff. Do you find it difficult, or is there just so much content out there that you can continue to create this stuff?
There's always content, and in fact, we always have to keep stuff in reserve. We have so many ideas. We're like, well, that'll be for some other theme down the future. We have to figure out a context to put it in. So I don't think we'll ever run out of stuff. And then certain things that are popular, we're a kit company. We make model kits, and there's certain kits like the Sherman tank will never not be popular. So maybe somebody who's gotten into Brickmania 5 years ago bought a Sherman kit, but somebody who might hear about us for the first time tomorrow would probably still be interested as well. So. Sherman tanks, Jeeps, Corsairs, P-51 Mustangs will sell forever.
The more iconic kind of vehicles and things.
So we're kind of like, we'll keep those in stock, and we'll always have to change them because we don't make the parts. We're held hostage by Lego and everybody else that we partner with. So I guess say held hostage is not the best, but we are definitely limited.
You're kind of at their mercy of what they're releasing and what they're putting out there.
And they're not thinking of us. They're not going, oh, Brickmania might need these parts. No, they don't.
This would make a good, tank barrel here.
Yeah. We're just a tiny blip on their radar, if we're even on their radar at all. So.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. Thanks for taking the time to take us through all of those different vehicles. I love hearing kind of the history and some of the design over the years there, and can't wait to see where it goes in the future. So thank you.
Yeah, you're looking at like 10 years of Brickmania model, or more, if not more than 10 years of Brickmania's sort of evolution of design here.
A lot of thought and hard work went into all of these kits.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know about thought, but or even hard work for that matter.
A bit of a stretch. There you go. Thanks for taking us through it.
Yeah, you're welcome.